All right, here we go. Another week, back at it.
Reflex.
Ticket to Gamehendge, episode number 14. Can't believe it
My
already.
favorite number, by the way.
Is it
Yeah.
14?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. I just think it looks cool.
I think you're a sucker for Valentine's Day. That's what I think.
I'm not. I would love to, as my wife is coming in right now, she can testify. Rochelle, am I a sucker for Valentine's Day?
Are you a sucker?
Yeah.
No.
See? No.
All right.
The-
14, eh? 14. All right. We'll have to think of a reason for that. A number that's on my mind right now is 10/30/2010. Last week, when we were wrapping up, you recommended for me to listen to that show. I was pretty sure that I had, because when I was, I guess, getting back on the train, back on the wagon, whatever you want to call it, what did I do? I sort of went back and I looked at groups of shows. So what I kind of focused on listening in the back half of last year were 3-night sets and the festivals, Halloween shows, all of that stuff. But it had been some time. And thinking back on it, last week we were talking about teases, and I think I said something like I didn't quite hear a tease. I forget what it was specifically. I'm guessing that's why you recommended for me to listen to that show. Is that right? Because you didn't say last week.
No, I'm guessing.
You just said,
I'm guessing I wanted you to listen to that show because the songs that they bust out are awesome.
Yeah.
Like the fact
Yeah,
that they just
incredible.
did all that stuff for like Zeppelin-esque was awesome.
Yeah. I mean, we both love Zeppelin. And as I started to listen to it, I was like, oh, I have heard this, but I forgot a lot of it. And it's funny, I was thinking back to the first time I listened to it, it probably would have been about a year ago. I wasn't as well versed, I suppose, as I am now. And I remember listening going, oh, this is just something that Phish does from time to time. You know, they just toss in random covers and just do these things. And I think I thought at the time that kind of behavior, for lack of a better term, was a little bit more prevalent than it actually is.
Well,
But again, coming back-
it goes back to our conversation last week, right? Of like taking
Yeah.
things for granted and just being like, oh yeah, well, this type of stuff happens all the time.
But it doesn't, and that's I can imagine going into those shows in Atlantic City. I'm sure a ton of fans had tickets for both nights, and to hear all the Zeppelin teases the night before Halloween, when I'm sure a lot of fans would love a Halloween cover of a full Zeppelin album. I can only imagine what the chatter in the community was overnight from the 30th into the 31st, anticipating what the Halloween cover was going to be. So yeah, just great. I love when that comes in and out of the songs and they, have those teases. It was just awesome. It got me. It's funny. It actually got me talking about Phish with somebody at work last week. Phish came up. I don't know how. And usually with me, somebody said something that is a song by Phish. And I go, oh, song has a Phish called Sand. Phish has a song called
We play that game now all the time. Because so there you go.
Yeah. For me, it's a great conversation starter. And one of my managers that I work with said, like, what is it, Adam? Like, you talk about it all the time. Like help me understand is essentially what they said. And we started talking about it. And I said, and I kind of would paraphrase it like this. I said, Phish fans are kind of like, if you're a fan of a TV show like Friends, Phish fans go back and listen to shows in the same way that a fan of a TV show might go back and listen to episodes, And I started talking, and I said, okay, one song, for example, Tweezer. And they go, Tweezer? They have a song called Tweezer? And I go, yeah, it's fucking awesome. You should listen to it, I said, so think about Tweezer. There is Tweezer Fest, right, from 5/7/94. There's the Tahoe Tweezer. There's the Nassau Tweezer. There's some more recent famous tweezers, 2019. That fans, we've talked about this. We get to go back and obsess over these differences and the nuances and all these different things that they bring in. And I was just in the middle of listening to 10/30/2010 Zep-Fest. And I was talking about that, and they seemed really like, wow, I can't believe that they're capable of doing that kind of thing, and that like fans would go and obsess over it. And we just kind of got talking about that, comparing it to the Grateful Dead, and I think I piqued some curiosity in this manager, and it's one that I've identified that I think could be a potential Phish fan. So I'm going to follow up. I think she may have gone back and listened to some songs, but it was just an interesting conversation because I just started talking about all the things that they've done that I would consider to be unique. And the eyebrows just kept getting raised more and more and more. And then it's ended up with, why have I never heard of these guys? It's like the best. I love that, So, I've been talking a lot about Phish with people over the last bit because there's been a lot of standing around.
It's almost like you're disqualifying them for being a music fan, right? Like if you don't like live music, then you would not find that stuff interesting.
Yeah, I think it's probably true.
Right?
You know, because it's you get to hear the differences in the energy, maybe the tempo, the solos, the arrangements. And I guess at first you don't really pick up on that stuff, but after listening to 40, 50, 60, 70 tweezers, you really start to. And my favorite thing about tweezers is going to sound weird is knowing that the reprise is coming at the end of the set or the end of the show. I just fucking love that when they come back, and I don't know, man, when Mike slaps that bass note, whatever it is, and it just, oh man, it just gives me chills every single time. So yeah, it's been a lot of conversation around that. Thanks for that recommendation. I had listened to it before, but now it's fresh in my memory. In my personal listening, I'm in November still of 2009, and it was actually interesting just to skip ahead a year to October of 2010. And I could hear the differences in the band already, like within a year of their 3.0 comeback. Just jam sounded a little bit tighter. The band seemed to be a little bit more in sync. So that was sort of interesting to deviate from 2009 and come back. I'm missing Carini. I will say they've only up to this point played Carini once in 2009. That one time that I referenced it, and I missed that song.
When was the debut of that song?
Carini?
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, it started around 97. Pretty sure it's 97. And towards the end of 97, there was like a show that's called The Carini Show. I forget it. I'll mark that as a follow-up for next week. But I remember going back when I was listening to all the 1.0 shows on the app, and Carini's like birth, you can kind of hear it coming, and it's different than it is now, but it really kind of gets played out at the end of 97 and then gets solidified as a solid song right at the end of 97. But I will take that away and do a little bit of research on my favorite song.
Oh, sounds like you're in a committed relationship now. You just called it your favorite song. It's like the L word. Did you just use the L word with her?
Yeah. Well, and you know what? It's just really going by the reaction that I get every time I hear it. It really, that's the only thing I'm going by. It's just a gut, and it's the one that I want to hear more than any other song. At the end of every tune, I'm like, oh, please, is it coming? Is it coming? It doesn't, but then it makes it that much greater when it does come. You know, I'm just gonna have to start recording myself every time I'm listening, so I can record a genuine reaction when I actually hear it.
I think what would be cooler, Adam, is for you to actually hear it when we go on tour next time.
100%. I just I don't want to commit to that until I kind of know that that's a possibility. It's happening. I just don't know when, but it'll be that much sweeter when it does happen for sure.
Yes, sir. I agree.
Another thing going on right now, I guess, without tour happening, I know we got Beacon Jams that we're going to talk about. There's a lot of anniversaries happening right now with Phish, right? So today is 23 years.
In the last 2 days, two big ones.
Yeah, so today is 23 years since Slip, Stitch, and Pass, and 22 years since the release of Story of the Ghost, which I think is your favorite studio album, is it not?
100%, without a doubt.
Yeah. Tell me about that. Why? It was one of the first studio albums that you got and really like listened to it over and over and over again. Is that?
Yeah. So it's interesting that it's these two albums are 1 year apart. Slip, Stitch, and Pass was like the album that got me into Phish, right? It was, I was at my next door neighbor's house who, you know, my parents begrudgingly let me go to his parties. You know, it was like, I had to like, dude, it was crazy. I was like, what was I? It was 96 or 97, so I was like 15 or 16, and I had to be home at like 11 o'clock, and I lived next door.
Well, I was thinking about that. Not that
it's going to be about your parents. To his house and like knock on the door by herself.
But I was thinking about that. So for the listeners that we have, Dr. K and I was thinking about this the other day. You and I have known each other. I'm 40. You're 40. Going to be 41.
In November, yeah.
We've known each other. Probably known each other as friends or acquaintances since probably I was 10 or 11.
Long time, man.
Right? Like we've been friends for 30 years. And I remember your mom being one of the mom volunteers that was at school all the time.
Yep.
And I also remember when we got into high school, we were on the basketball team and we had our first traveling tournament. Remember when we went to Guelph?
Oh yeah.
Your parents were the only ones that came.
Yep.
And you had to stay in the hotel room with them. And I remember going like, wow, like,
you guys. It was me, you, Aaron, and Jack Chang.
Oh yeah.
Right? And we were playing Street Fighter 2.
Right, but your parents were in the hotel in another room. You didn't have to stay with them. You stayed with us.
No, that's not true. They
Oh,
stayed at family friends that lived in Hamilton. They went to go visit family friends, but they drove us.
got it.
Yeah.
But I remember your parents being a lot more strict than the rest of our parents in terms of curfew, being home on time, what you weren't allowed to do, and yeah, I remember that being a distinct difference in our circle of friends. But probably not a bad thing looking back in hindsight, right? I think
Dude, my mom's strategy was to always be around and to just keep score. You know, she knew who were the good kids. She knew who the bad kids were. Thankfully, there weren't any bad kids. They were just kids that did things that
sure there were.
Like who that we hung out with.
Oh, not that we hung out with, but around us in our school.
Anyways, if there's one person left listening to this that cares about like our past lives, Slip Stitch and Pass. So anyways, I was at my neighbor's house and we were listening to the Dead Set, the show from 1981, and Fire on the Mountain was on. This is, by the way, in the book, right? This is a good time. So I wrote this down. This is our Get Your Friends Into Phish book. So download it if you really want to hear the story in details. It was me and Jeff, and Fire on the Mountain was on, and Jerry Garcia just passed away, like the year before, whatever. I'm like, man, I really miss Jerry. He's like, oh, hey, you should check out this band called Phish. And then he's like, oh, yeah, they got this song called Cities, and he did the worst impression I've ever heard. It was like, I'm like, in my mind, I still remember feeling this way. I'm like, that sounds fucking terrible, but thanks for your recommendation. Right? Anyways, Time goes on. I'm like, I'm probably never going to listen to this band. They probably suck. I'm at the mall with my buddy Drew, and I'm like, shit, I got like $10 to spend. I'm going to buy a CD, and I'm like going through the things. I honestly think I was looking for Primus to see if they had anything new, because this was back before the internet. You know, like you had to actually like release an album and create a marketing campaign around an album and the whole bit. And then I see Phish, because I'm close to Primus. I'm like, oh yeah, this is the band that Jeff was telling me to check out, and it was Slip Stitch and Pass that I had to borrow money from Drew to pay for it. But it was Slip Stitch and Pass was the first album, and I remember like getting it home and listening. And then the Christmas of that year was, it was the life changer, man. It was Alive one that my parents got me, and Story of a Ghost, and they were both just like,
forget about it. Yeah,
forget about it.
Yeah, forget about it. Yeah, incredible. I know I use that term a lot, but I don't know what better to think of. Yeah, so Slip Stitch and Pass. So it opens with Cities, your favorite Phish song at the time, evidently. Wolfman's Brother, Jesus Just Left Chicago, Way, Mike's song, Long Boy, Weekapog, of course, because Mike's song, Hello My Baby, which probably, if you're not 16, 17-year-old guy and you're listening to that album, what was your reaction when you heard the acapella Hello My Baby on Slip Stitch and Pass? You remember?
Dude, my reaction in Drew's car to I want to cut your head off so I can weigh it. I was like, okay, Jack, I've listened.
That's one of those songs. Yeah,
I'll listen
like
to this
somebody
later.
walks in the room and that song is playing. It's tough to defend it, I guess. Yeah, you really know. And then they ended with Taste. Really, really short, obviously taken from different shows and not a full show, but a good taste of live Phish for sure.
If I'm not mistaken, it's the Europe tour, right? Mm-hmm. In '97, that's that album.
Oh right, yeah.
And the guy that did the Pink Floyd covers did the cover for the album with the ball.
The artist, yeah, I forget the name of that, but yeah, really, really cool album cover. Yeah, great album. And then Story of a Ghost, I'm looking at it now, and obviously I know the songs that are on there, and I'm looking at them, and I'm just thinking, like, I would take any one of these songs at a show. Anyone.
Dude, there's staples, like Story of, like, Ghost is on there, Mama Dance is on there. Those are, like, staples that will be forever, like, Phish songs. But there's, like, underrated gems, man. Rogae's underrated. Brian and Robert, Frankie Says, right? And then like Gaiuti and
Meat,
right? Birds of a Feather, Waiting, The Velvet Sea, you know, which I don't understand why everyone flags on. It's an amazing song. Just an incredible album, man, by the way.
Yeah, really good. Last night, actually, during the girls' bath time, I had October 31st, 2010. I just started it, and it opens with Frankenstein, and they're just kind of learning about Halloween. So they're having a tough time understanding that the song was called Frankenstein. And then the second song on that show is Big Black Furry Creature from Mars. And then the third song is Ghost. Just great, right? The fact that, you know, their catalog is such that they can have Halloween themed type titled songs, even though nothing to do with Halloween.
My favorite, sorry to interrupt, my favorite is always when you get like the 3-minute album song, like Story of a Ghost, and then like live, it's one of like the most epic jams.
Yeah. Birds of a Feather, 4 minutes, 14 seconds on the album. You're right. You go into YouTube and search Birds of a Feather. You're probably not going to find anything under 15 minutes. It's awesome. Yeah. And that's, it's the best, as we know. Let's switch up a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about Beacon Jams. I mean, I was just kind of reminded when we talked about Brian and Robert. Night 3 was this past Friday. Night 4 coming up in a few days. You weren't able to watch it again, right? You got family and kids and stuff going on. You've listened to the show.
Yep.
I assume.
I listened piecemeal after. It's tough because just the way that it ends up working out. I still prefer listening to Phish shows like in its entirety. So I put it on just to listen to it, right? To say that I heard it.
I could see that being a completely different experience. I was fortunate enough to turn it on within about maybe 2-3 minutes of it starting.
Nice.
They had made the announcement earlier in the day that there was going to be an announcement from the barn at 7:50, and that's right around the time that I'm tied up with my girls, putting them to bed. I'm looking at the clock, and I don't
go to sleep.
Yeah, totally. And we didn't know what the announcement's going to be, and I was looking at people commenting and guessing on what it's going to be. It was great. It was a nice little evening song with Trey and Paige on top deck at the barn.
So nice.
And what was really, really cool was they recreated the photo from Colorado '88 when they're carrying. This is really, really neat. Just those little nuances that they put out there, knowing that the fans are going to see it, and that's just great. Nice little tease there. But then, the show got going, and I think with each passing week, I'm anticipating, maybe expecting something different, and that's definitely happening. But it seems to be that, at least as of now, the same core group of players, have been there all 3 weeks. The Rescue Squad joined again, which again sounded awesome.
That was the best song. What's the Use was the best song.
Yeah, that was definitely my highlight from it. And no repeats yet, right? It's still looking like, the community is believing or thinking that we're going to go eight weeks without a repeat, which makes me, if that's the case, we don't know yet. It really makes me curious about how deep they're going to get into the catalog and what types of songs are going to bust out that maybe you'd never expect to do. Let's talk a little bit about What's the Use. I think it was the highlight.
Me too.
Great song. And how often do you see something from the Sicket disc even really put out there, right? It's not a common. I even had to go which one is this on? I had to do a little bit of searching because I bought the Sicket disc when it came out.
Haven't you heard it live enough to know that it's from there?
Yeah, but I forgot what album it was.
Okay.
There's the odd song that isn't really on an album. That's just a Phish song.
What's the use when they play it every time? I'm like, fuck yes, I love this song. It's so spacey and melodic, and Paige, when they play it live, does that like the strings. That it's so cool, man. It's just so cool. Yeah,
and I would echo too that watching it along with listening to it was just great.
Always.
Always. The atmosphere in the theater, like the lighting, you could see just the way the guys in the band and the people in the Rescue Squad were communicating. It was just beautiful.
I didn't have any like awesome takeaways this time. I'm always just impressed at their ability to get better and better, tighter and tighter. And Trey's absolute reverence for like the moment and rearranging his own music in whatever fashion possible to get the most of. It's just crazy to me the level of depth and respect he has for the actual music, and how he's willing to. He creates. It's interesting. I'm struggling for the words. He doesn't necessarily care for the virtuosity of the players. He wants the music to sound well while leveraging the talent of each individual musician the best.
I completely agree. It's funny you mentioned that. I was thinking about, again, I'm going to come back to Sustain and his style of playing, especially in a lot of the